The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Kia ora, I'm Alex Casey, senior writer at The Spinoff. We're huge fans of local television here, and for one night only, we want to celebrate some of our all-time faves. Join me, Kura Forrester, Rhiannon McCall, and fellow Spinoff writers at Q Theatre on October 31st. That's right, Halloween. Together, we'll unearth some beloved TV gems and argue for their place in our pop culture history. Tickets are on sale now at thespinoff.co.nz/events.
But next minute, it turns into, a maths lesson. So it's little things like that that's surprising. And that's what I love about observational.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for coming out tonight again and for staying for this live record of Behind the Story, which is where we talk to writers or directors who have created something for the spin-off and sort of give a little insight into how, in the process of how it was made, because there's always a lot more work than what you see on the screen or on the page. So congratulations again, Chris and Miriam, on another beautiful project. Your documentaries that you've made have been on quite, if I might say, random topics when you put them together. There's rugby, religion, and now education. What brought you to education? Is there like a personal connection, or was it just something that you observed while out and about?
We were researching for a different project altogether, and we met some folk who were doing unschooling, which I'm sure many of you know what that is, but we were quite surprised about this approach to educating, and had many of the questions that I know lots of homeschoolers hate, like how do you deal with socialization, or how do you keep up standards, all those things, and But really, it challenged our assumptions around what education is or could be. I thought, maybe we just need to fund schools more, or make more classrooms. That will solve the problem. But this whole world opened up in terms of all these different approaches, different philosophies, and I guess we realised our ignorance in terms of the world of education, and now we have a 3.5-year-old ourselves, and the stakes have got higher, shall we say. She's desperate to go to school, I might add. She hasn't been to school yet, but we just thought it was right territory to explore and satisfy something of our curiosity. Yeah. And I guess the thing is we're coming as curious outsiders to this. We're looking to learn, and that's been true of all our projects. It's we call it discovery-led, rather than we're not coming in with a thesis that we're looking to prove or to illustrate. We're genuinely looking to learn from and through the subjects that we are following. Because I believe you see that on screen, you feel the discovery on screen. There's an energy there that, if we're just illustrating interviews, for example, just doesn't exist. We're up flying by the seat of our pants the whole way, learning, and therefore when we're having our assumptions and our preconceptions challenged ourselves.
Yeah, we often say with people we film with that we're making our films with our subjects, not about them. So we're never coming in as experts. We're coming in to learn and explore and be surprised. And I think another aspect of why we're drawn to what seems like random subjects is we seem to be drawn to people who are living to their convictions, all of their values. And so obviously the Sisters of Compassion on the Whanganui River, I mean, rugby players may not seem like it, but they are living to a certain code of ethics, and we wanted to explore behind the scenes of that. And certainly with the world of homeschooling, all of the families we filmed with have the courage to step outside what is considered the norm and follow their convictions about what's going to give their children the best chance in terms of helping them flourish in the world. So I think that often is a common thread across all the world, all of our ideas is exploring things as curious outsiders, but, with people living with convictions.
And you've kind of become known as a team for these quite long-term projects where you follow a subject or a community over quite a long period of time. This, you had quite a few different subjects in different locations. How did you have to switch up your usual approach to hopefully get that same level of connection with your subjects and the story?
Not only are we drawn to an observational approach, we always end up doing these kind of multi-protagonist stories. So, the rugby team or the sisters, there's always 3 at least characters that we're seeing the world through. And we kind of realize that series kind of does the same thing. It tackles the same themes or the same areas of interest through different points of views. And so whilst they're not 6 consecutive episodes, it's 6 different perspectives. And so I think that's also what's consistent, perhaps.
So this is our first web series, and we've actually found it, really liberating in that way that you can follow 6 kind of quite different stories or worlds within exploring the same kind of subject matter. And also what's been different for us this time, we used to always go, the last 2 features, we lived on site with the communities we filmed with for a year. And this time, we've got a 3-year-old now, so I was producing from home, and Chris would go and do all the filming by himself. And so whilst that was quite a stretch at times technically, because Chris is having to think about sound and capturing things on camera as well, observing beautifully what's going on behind the scenes. But I think what was great for this particular project is it allowed quickly to get that intimacy, because it was only, I think, 8 days with each family we had for these shoots rather than a whole year. So whilst Chris had a lot of technical stuff to deal with, I think it kind of suited the mode of the storytelling, and I've just been able to enjoy it more remotely, but
and it's definitely a challenge. It's mutual, right? I'm having to earn our subjects' trust, and I'm having to reveal a lot of myself, it feels, because it's a very quick time to gain that access. And
when you have a feature-length documentary, which you've done, you have quite a long run time to establish everything through observation. This series features a bit more sort of, interview to camera. Did that feel going in a necessity for both the topic and just the shorter runtime that you're dealing with?
Yes, in that with the feature work, the subject is really only the vehicle for the real subject, whereas this is more within the realm of factual content. So we have to deliver on what's on the tin to a degree, and there's a lot of context that needs to be communicated that can only really be done through interview. And my preference is to have as little as necessary, and to show rather than tell, of course. But yes, so and actually structuring a little film through interview is so much easier than trying to structure anything just through the action of observational.
Yeah, and I think with the series, through the casting process, each of the 6 families have come to it with different motivations or different schools of thoughts and approaches. So each episode is only 15 minutes, and we just felt there was so much wealth of knowledge that they possessed, and so much we needed to learn, and which could only be conveyed through interview as well, in order to really enjoy and appreciate the observational moments.
And oftentimes, these were supposed to be 10 minutes, but the interviews would go for more than an hour, because it was so fascinating talking with some of these families. So there's so much that isn't in there as well. That's one of the hardships.
You obviously had to cast for this, so you found your your families that you wanted to document. Were there any surprises in terms of what ended up making the final cut as far as the narrative went, or did you feel like what you talked about before you spent time with them and filmed kind of ended up playing out on screen?
This is a great example of that, in that I was looking for moments which reveal learning through the kids' interests and their own, being motivated to learn. And I remember just, I think it was almost the second to last day, I was filming the girls doing the high jump. Not really sure why I was filming them do the high jump, but next minute it turns into, a maths lesson. So it's little things like that that's surprising. And that's what I love about observational, is you never know where things lead. But going in, we generally knew the motivations for why people are taking that particular approach to home education. And so the structure, I guess, was relatively clear, but the how things might unfold could never predict.
Yeah, because each episode is kind of very genuinely a week in the life of, so it's just what unfolded during that week is what, crafted from that is what you're going to see in the episode. So it's almost like, it's quite amazing how it can pull together.
On a more technical note, each episode is 15 minutes. How much footage was there that you whittled down to 15 minutes?
I actually don't know. I can maybe count it in terabytes, but I really don't know. I think, maybe 10 hours or something like that, maybe. It's just hard drive space. So it's there's a lot, but generally I know exactly what I'm going for, what I'm going to use out of that. Because I know there's been a setup, a development payoff here, and it connects with what's been established thematically there. So I'm not, wading through 10 hours of footage. I'm wading through, a smaller amount, but doesn't make it easier to cut.
Yeah, because Chris is director, cinematographer, and editing it, so it does help him knowing, being behind the scenes the whole time. And he's obviously privy to the full story behind everything he's shooting too, which helps know that he's using it in the right sort of context.
I'm interested in you mentioning that this is sort of closer to quote-unquote factual content, and realising that actually a lot of documentaries, no matter how sort of newsy they might feel, often come from an urge from the makers to say this is important, or this person should be celebrated, or this issue is a miscarriage of justice, or something like that. So there's always kind of an angle on it, and you have been very clear that there's no angle on this. It's simply a look into a world that people may not have seen.
It's that, but also we're curious to learn, and as new parents who don't really know what we're doing, we learned a lot. I think there's a lot whether you're choosing to homeschool or not, that we have learned from these people that we filmed with, and it's things, like the value of following your children's lead in terms of their interests, or trusting them more, and their unfolding and wanting to learn and things like that. So there's a lot, I think, whilst it's certainly not advocating for any of the worlds we film with, we always come away with things we learn that we feel like they're of value to share to audiences from all walks of life.
Absolutely, and I'd add to that, no, we're not trying to dissect the topic, go through the ins and outs and whys and wherefores and all. The Ground We Won, for example, is about a dairy farming rugby team, and I couldn't care less about rugby. I spent a year with those guys. I still don't know the rules. Like, we don't tell you when the club was formed or any of that. Not interested. We're looking at the universal truths that are part of that world, and for me, that's more about male tenderness is the subject. That's what is at the heart of that film for me. And whilst the series is clearly in the factual content category, I'm always looking for what unifies each episode on that emotional level. And whilst it doesn't necessarily play out, or I don't expect the audience to be reading it in that way, there's definitely this common thread or common theme of the courage that these families have displayed or are displaying, or be that the courage to step outside of the norm, or the courage to maintain their convictions in the face of doubt or in the face of judgment. That's what I'm always looking for, whether or not that's a big feature or not. That's really what's important to me, more than explaining away a topic.
Has it led to you, I know you said you learned a lot, especially as new parents, is there anything in particular that you feel like you will be taking into educating, whether in an official or unofficial realm with your child?
I think the main thing is, and I think it's true of all the families that we've filmed with, is just about fostering a love of learning and making that the first and foremost goal, if you like. And yeah, that's, I guess, for me, is what I'm taking away from it. How about you?
Yeah. And you see a lot of them just supporting their kids to go just where they want to go, and trusting that will unfold in their own time, not on whatever is this perceived schedule from the outside. So, so I think there's a lot of really helpful things like that we can learn from these families.
Oh, well, congratulations again on a beautiful series. Home Education will be releasing every Tuesday on the Spinoff for the next 6 weeks. That was Chris Pryor and Miriam Smith on Behind the Story. Thank you all. Kia ora.
Kia ora, I'm Duncan Grieve, founder of The Spinoff. You can help us keep all of The Spinoff's award-winning journalism free for everybody by becoming a member today at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora, I'm Alex Casey, senior writer at The Spinoff. We wouldn't exist without the ongoing support of our generous members. If you're able to, you can make a donation at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spinoff Podcast Network.